Okay, the topic for today's video is sex.
Yes, and specifically how to have healthy intimacy with your long-term partner or spouse. Welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, this is Katie and I'm Steph. We are the Burleton family and the creators of Let's See the World.
You're cute. Okay, so this is a video we've been wanting to do for a while. We definitely want to chat about this topic in a way that we can offer advice, share some personal experiences obviously, but still maintain some sense of like privacy of our private life.
Yes, of course this is a delicate topic, but we want to, like Katie said, give as much advice as possible.
Yeah.
While not getting too personal, but also sharing from experience.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into just our thoughts on like healthy intimacy and having a healthy sex life in your marriage or in your long-term relationship with your partner. So let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so in our opinion, the key to a great sex life is really communication. And I know that sounds super boring, but we're gonna get into like why that is and why healthy communication is really like the key ingredient to a great sex life. Both like in and out of the bedroom, communication is so important. So that's going to kind of be the overarching theme of this video.
Yeah, totally. It's not just communication in the moment, but also being able to talk about it when you're not in the middle of things.
Exactly.
Yeah, so those discussions kind of outside of the bedroom are super important, and they can look like anything from discussing your kind of wants and needs in this kind of safe environment that's a bit pressure-free. Sometimes having those conversations while you are in the bedroom can be a bit more like high pressure, a bit more daunting.
Yeah.
So kind of creating a safe space outside of the moment can be really beneficial to be able to open up and really talk about things.
For sure. And when we say in the bedroom and out of the bedroom, obviously we don't mean that that's the only place that you're ever going to be intimate. But it's our way of saying like while you're being intimate and while you're not.
And that's something you can discuss.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think just like, opening up the lines of communication with your partner is so important. I think that doing that really early on in your relationship is a great thing to do. I remember we had lots of conversations about that when we started dating. It's so important just in learning like what's important to your partner, kind of where they're at, knowing like, you know, sex drives and all those things. Like if you're compatible, like I think that's really important. And speaking from experience, I guess, like that's something we've always been really like well matched on, and we've been able to like communicate about. For other couples, I don't know, like obviously there are ways of making it work if intimacy is like more important to one partner than the other. Like those are things that people obviously navigate all the time. But just being able to have those conversations and just be honest about like what's important to you, what your needs are, where you're at, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and creating that safe space for your partner to come to you. And that also applies for if things change, or if, you know, if someone is going through something in their life that, you know, kind of changes their sex drive or what they want, or, you know, things change all the time, and it's important to continue to have those conversations.
Definitely. Yeah, there are so many things that can affect someone's sex drive, like over time, or even just like week by week, month by month, like stress, hormones,
body image, past traumas, things like that. Even medications, if you're going on a new medication or something like that.
Totally. Yeah. Like sometimes people have days where, you know, you're just like feeling insecure, you're like not in the mood. Like there are just so many factors, and I think that that's an important thing to communicate about, because I think that it can be easy to sort of take those things personally when they're not personal. Like I know that that's something we talk about a lot and we have over time, and just we're definitely in a place where like those things are just like understandable and we get it, and it doesn't ever have to make the other person feel bad if we're not like in the same place at the same time feeling the same way, if that makes sense. Right?
Yeah, often I think that feelings of rejection can come up if your partner is kind of unable to reciprocate in the moment or not feeling it, but having that open communication can really help, because a lot of the time, most of the time, probably all the time, it's not about the partner, but it's about the person who's kind of going through that.
Yeah, and being able to have those conversations, like you said, like when you're not in the moment, it makes it a lot easier, because when you're in that moment, you know,
might feel a little bit more like rejection.
Exactly, yeah. But if you can kind of be having those talks and just have the lines of communication open all the time so that you can be honest with each other about where you're at, I think that's so important. And of course, it's easier to not take things personally when you both feel secure in the relationship and secure in like your attraction to one another and all of those things. So I think it can be really important to make sure that you're kind of affirming those things for your partner all the time and making sure that you both just feel, like safe and secure in the relationship. So in those moments, it doesn't feel like a rejection. It doesn't feel like something that you take personally.
Right.
Yeah.
So also when it comes to communicating your wants and needs, another thing that you can kind of discuss outside of the bedroom is your kind of ideas of how to initiate things or how you want your partner to initiate. Sometimes for some couples, spontaneity is the way to go, but for other people, it could be beneficial to actually set aside some time and talk about kind of when and where and what the situation might look like, because so often, especially with busy lives and working from home, everything can kind of blur into the next thing, and sometimes you do actually have to set aside time, and that may sound scheduled and unromantic, but you can kind of have some fun with it, and if that is something that will help you, then it's definitely worth it, and it's definitely important to do.
For sure. Yeah, I think this idea of like scheduling time for sex sounds like so boring and not romantic. But I do think that can be really helpful, especially in like marriages and long-term relationships where you've been together for a long time and things shift and change, and maybe things aren't as spontaneous as they once were in the beginning,
or you don't have the time for a spontaneous encounter.
For sure. Or maybe you've just like fallen into a routine, or like you said, like being at home together all the time or whatever it may be. Like it can be so easy to just kind of forget to make the time for it. And so I do think that can be really valuable, like scheduling it in, like setting aside the time or talking about how and when and where and what. Like it's just, I don't know, all of those things can be really beneficial as long as you're talking about it and you're on the same page and everything like that. Because over the years, like things do really change and your wants and needs might change, and like it's so important to just continue to communicate about it, making sure that you're talking about those things. Like maybe you're feeling like you want to spice things up or whatever it is. Like you have to be able to communicate that with your partner and create like a safe space to be able to have those honest conversations, and honestly like vulnerable conversations, right? These things are not easy for everyone to talk about, and you want to be able to say those things like honestly to your partner, obviously.
And those discussions and even scheduling things out doesn't mean you have to take the kind of surprise element or the exciting part of it out.
No.
You could do something like, okay, let's say this time or this day, and have your partner plan something that's kind of a surprise, or like that's based on something you've discussed, and then it can still be exciting, or it can still be a bit of a surprise or spontaneous, but like in a way where you're setting aside the time.
Totally. Or setting aside the time together to like learn new things or try new things or whatever that might look like. I think that can be such a great tool for sure, even though it sounds like boring, but I think it's really important. Yeah. Okay, so now let's kind of move into the bedroom and what
we're not actually going to go to the bedroom.
No, we're going to stay in the kitchen.
We're just going to talk about it.
But what kind of like communication sort of in the moment looks like. And I do think that this one can be a lot more difficult for people. I
more
think
daunting.
It is very vulnerable, right? And especially like as women, we talk about this all the time, like just being socially conditioned to be like agreeable and to not speak up for ourselves and all these things. So you do kind of have to practice like being able to assert yourself and ask for what you want and say what you like and what you don't like and all those things. And I think it comes with practice and obviously being with a partner who you trust and you feel comfortable and safe with and all of those things. But I think it's so valuable and important, and you really just can't have like an amazing sex life without being able to do that.
Well, totally. Otherwise you're not getting what you want. If you can't say what you want, if you can't ask for what you want, you're not going to get what you want.
And if you don't know what you want, right? It has to start with that, because you can't communicate it if you don't even know. And I think it's important to make sure that like you've taken time to kind of explore and learn about yourself to know what it is you enjoy, right?
But also exploring with your partner
For sure.
And communicating along the way. So when we're talking about that in the bedroom communication, that's part of it too. You know, maybe you don't really know and you want to try something, but you're not really sure. But you need to be able to communicate as you're going so that you know whether or not this is something you want to keep trying or it's not working or, you know.
And being able to just, have those conversations in the moment and be like, oh, that's not working or whatever it may be, like feeling comfortable enough to just kind of go for it and see as you go.
I think so many people, especially women, are kind of afraid to speak up while they're in the moment because they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. And that is absolutely valid. I completely understand that sentiment. But also, it's important to create a space and have that communication with your partner so that you can find ways to kind of assert and advocate for your needs without making your partner feel rejected or understanding how they like to receive feedback in kind of a safe space, because it's a safe space for both of you and it's important that you want to create that for each other.
Yes, absolutely, because ultimately, like, no one's doing anything wrong, right? Like, if there's something that's like not working for you or you don't like it, it's just your preference. Everybody is so different, and sex is supposed to be fun and enjoyable, and you're meant to enjoy yourself, and everyone enjoys different things, right? Like, I think you can't think that just because it's what you think they're going to like or what maybe someone else liked, that they're going to like it, that your current partner is going to like it. Like, we talk all the time just about like how different we are, and even though like we're both women and we have the same anatomy, like the same things, like we're just entirely different in what we enjoy and what we like, and that is totally fine and that makes sense, and everyone is so different. So just getting to know your partner, it's so important. It's so important.
So more specific to long-term relationships with the kind of in the bedroom communication, I think it's important to kind of be aware that yourself or your partner might want to make things a little bit more interesting. If you've been with the same partner for a long time, or if you've been doing the same things for a long time, you know, it might be a good opportunity to change things up and try some new things. And obviously, back to communication being so important with that, because you want to know kind of where you're at, where your partner's at, what the kind of parameters are for this exploration of new things. You know, it's all really important to, again, just come back to that communication and creating a safe space of just being able to talk about things with no judgment. And,
for sure. Yeah, because naturally things are going to change over time. I mean, if you're spending like years, decades with the same partner and you're monogamous, like it's, things are going to change. You're going to want to try new things. You're going to get bored of certain things. You're going to, I don't know, maybe want to become more adventurous or whatever. And I mean, there are so many ways, so many things to try, so many ways to like keep your sex life fun and interesting. Like, we've been together for 11 years now. I feel like there's still many things we've never explored, right? Like, we've got so much time still to explore just everything. So, right, like there's literally like no limit. Well, there are limits. People have limits.
And
but there's no limits.
It's important to discuss those limits as well.
But the opportunity is there, is what I mean. Yes, of things to explore. Yes. So I think being able to be honest about all of those things is so important.
So obviously there are so many things that go into healthy intimacy, especially with a long-term partner. And something that's so often talked about is kind of spicing things up and doing things that are new. And that doesn't necessarily need to be daunting. It doesn't need to be extreme. You know, obviously you want to kind of keep things in your zone of comfort, relative comfort. But a great way of doing that together is, you know, learning some new things, listening to a podcast, watching some, you know, videos, or reading a book together, or, you know, it's a great way of kind of changing things up without having to
overhaul your whole repertoire. I think there are lots of ways of just kind of injecting new things into what you're already doing, like incorporating toys if you've never done that, or different toys, new toys. Again, there's endless opportunity.
I mean, I think a lot of change can be intimidating, and a lot of, you know, introducing of new things can be intimidating. But if you're kind of willing to learn together and you want to go on that journey together, I think that's the best way to kind of get to a point where both of you are happy in what you are doing. And
absolutely. So I think that kind of wraps things up, but this is a topic that we think is really important, and something that, you know, can be difficult to talk about, can be a little bit like shy to talk about, but I do think it's a conversation worth having because it really is such a big part of most relationships, that like physical aspect, and it's always been an important part of ours and something that we communicate about regularly. So we thought we would just kind of offer some tips and advice of what we think could be helpful for other couples. But if you want any other videos on this topic, we could kind of dive deeper into some of the things we talked about, then let us know in the comments.
Yes. So please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Also, make sure you're subscribed because we will be putting out some of those videos in the future and you don't want to miss them.
Don't want to miss them. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.